Remember the time Hercules and Aladdin almost killed each other thanks to an alliance between Jafar and Hades? Hi, I'm Dr. Panda, the only panda who's ever found a magic lamp, and in today's video, we're breaking down what went down in the classic episode 57 of the Hercules animated series, the one where he crosses paths with none other than Aladdin himself. Also, while digging into this episode, I realized there's one main Aladdin character who's totally MIA here, and there's an actual reason for that. See if you can guess who. Let's dive in. The episode starts with Hades role-playing in the underworld, frustrated because Hercules always manages to one-up him, no matter what Greek monsters or evil plans he throws his way. He's interrupted by Pain and Panic, who tell him they're having trouble with a new arrival in the underworld. When Hades asks what the problem is, they explain that this new soul is terrifying them. So they guide Hades to the check-in area where he comes face to face with Jafar's soul for the first time. Because, if you don't remember, Jafar died at the end of the 1994 film, The Return of Jafar. Jafar refuses to accept that he's dead, and insists there's been a mistake, but Hades has heard it all before, so he mocks him and orders Pain and Panic, now turned into chickens, to take him away. Hades continues his game of dungeons and Hercules when Jafar's ghost appears, asking if he's trying to overthrow someone else's kingdom. He explains that he tried the same with the distant land of Agrabah, and even became a powerful, immortal genie. Briefly, though. When Hades asks what went wrong, Jafar tells him about some street rat named Aladdin. And in this moment, Hades' expression completely changes as he relates to Jafar's situation. After all, he's had to deal with his own street rat born on Olympus. So he offers Jafar some ambrosia, and they start talking. And here I have to say that the next scene is one of my favorites. Even though there's a lot of dialogue and not much visual action, seeing these two iconic villains chatting and drowning their sorrows together by the fireplace is something I didn't know I needed. Plus, they have completely different personalities. Jafar is serious and a much more traditional kind of villain, while Hades is sarcastic and flamboyant, which makes their dynamic even funnier. Hades tells Jafar about the time Hercules literally carried the sun on his shoulders, which impresses Jafar, though he tries to hide his amazement. Hades remarks that if Hercules had any brains, he'd be a true menace, to which Jafar counters by saying that Herc's brute strength could never compare to Aladdin's trickery. This outrages the Lord of the Underworld, who then demands he prove his words. Jafar replies that he could, if only he were alive again. Hades relents, granting him the chance to return in flesh and blood. But then come the terms and conditions. Jafar will only remain alive while holding his staff. If he loses it, he'll revert to being just a lost soul once more. Hades then tells Jafar that first he must deal with Hercules, and only after that can he go get his long-awaited revenge against Aladdin. This is followed by what might be the single best visual this crossover will give us. Yep, disturbing. And just like that, the deal is sealed. Meanwhile in Greece, Hercules breezes through his training, which includes jumping on the heads of these bullmen like they're Koopa Troopas. But just when the demigod thinks he successfully completed the entire training, he realizes he forgot to defeat this evil human torso. Phil encourages him to use his brain and not just his muscles, but their conversation is interrupted by massive Greek mythological creatures looking for a fight. Their leader is Jafar, who starts blasting his ancient Agrabah lasers at Hercules while he's trapped by the griffin. Phil yells at him once again to use his brain, but Jafar flies into a rage and turns him into his future dinner. Hercules breaks free from the griffin and decides to use the head. Not his, though. Jafar is defeated and sent back to the underworld, which doesn't surprise Hades at all. The sorcerer explains he wasn't prepared as he had never dealt with that kind of raw strength when facing his own mortal arch-nemesis. Hades can't believe what he's hearing. What do you mean Aladdin is just a mortal? Jafar explains that while Aladdin may be mortal, he's a really clever one, which earns him mockery from Hades. This pushes Jafar over the edge, declaring that Aladdin could humiliate and destroy Hades with his superior qualities. Anybody else thinks these guys sound like the hero's biggest fans? Hades decides he'll take care of Aladdin just for chuckles, but since the street rat is beneath his notice, he opts to send Pain and Panic instead. And so we finally reach the long-awaited moment when we get to see Agrabah in the episode for the first time. Pain and Panic attempt to blend in as they walk through the local marketplace searching for their target. The description is clear. This Aladdin guy wears a vest, no shirt, and a rakish fez. So when they spot him in the distance, they transform into this thing, terrifying all the impulse buyers around them. Turns out though, they've actually grabbed Abu, mistaking him for Aladdin since he did match the description perfectly. But atop the roof of a nearby building, striking a heroic pose worthy of the Batman himself, Aladdin stands alongside Jasmine and the magic carpet. This leads to a battle that at first seems to be going Aladdin's way, until he ends up at Pain and Panic's mercy. But to prove just what a master trickster Al really is, he taunts them, begging them to do whatever they want to him, just not to dare rub his lamp. Aladdin and friends start playing hot potato with the lamp, while Pain and Panic desperately try to snatch it, until they finally take down Abu and get their hands on the ancient relic. Aladdin and Jasmine beg them not to rub it, but they do it anyway, so Genie delivers a falcon punch from inside the lamp that sends the minions flying back home, earning Jafar's mockery. Hades acknowledges Pain and Panic's failure, but couldn't care less about Aladdin, since his real goal is cosmic domination. Jafar rants about being unable to defeat the slippery street urchin until he gets a brilliant idea. Maybe he doesn't have to beat him at all. So he asks Hades the key question: what happens when a hero fights another hero? Hades asks how they'd arrange that, to which Jafar suggests a misunderstanding. Cue Jafar's evil laughter, which leaves Hades thoroughly confused. Cut to Abu finds a banana lying in the middle of Agrabah's marketplace. Could he be any luckier? Turns out he could, because just a few feet away lies another banana, and then another, and another, and another. This is followed by shrieks as he disappears into an alleyway, captured by Jafar. Meanwhile in ancient Greece, Icarus walks peacefully when he finds a banana lying in the middle of Thebes' marketplace. Could he be any luckier? Turns out he could, because just a few feet away lies another banana, and then another, and another, and you get the picture. So Abu and Icarus end up captured in the underworld at the feet of Hades and Jafar, and the first phase of the evil plan is complete. Hercules waits for Icarus in the city's central plaza when a sweet, innocent old man appears and tells him Icarus was kidnapped by a young rogue who flew away on his magic carpet to Agrabah, named Aladdin. And now everything rests in Pain and Panic's shoulders. Al and Jasmine search for Abu throughout Agrabah, but he's nowhere to be found. Everything seems normal though, until the minions transform into Hercules and stage a fake confession where Herc admits to kidnapping Abu, provoking Aladdin before fleeing. The real Hercules arrives in Agrabah seeking Aladdin, but falls right into the evil trickster's trap. The two face off, exchanging expositional trash talk before the fight begins. Hercules charges at Aladdin without thinking, only to crash into the building across the street. Enraged, Hercules starts lifting the entire building where Team Al is standing, forcing Aladdin to concede he's too strong to fight head-on, so he leads him away instead. Meanwhile, Phil tries hitting on Jasmine, but she shuts him down, telling him she's married. Remember this because it'll be important later. Hercules mounts Pegasus and chases Aladdin, who takes him on a guided tour through the city, using his wits to wear him down. Phil keeps yelling at Hercules to use his brain and not just his muscles, but to no avail, while Aladdin attempts the classic friendly neighborhood trick, but fails. Things take a turn when the Agrabah street rat tricks Hercules into accidentally demolishing their building, forcing the demigod to hold up the collapsing roof to avoid being crushed, and leaving him at Aladdin's mercy. Al explains that he can help him out if he reveals Abu's whereabouts, to which Herc replies demanding him to release Icarus. And this is when Aladdin realizes there's been a misunderstanding. But before he can say a word, the building collapses on both of them and Finn. But then we return from the commercial break to find Hercules and Aladdin inexplicably alive and now besties. At a group debrief, they piece together that this was all a setup. Hercules name drops Jafar, and they realize he teamed up with Hades to make the two heroes destroy each other. Why is Pegasus flirting with the carpet? Aladdin's plan is to storm the underworld brute force style to rescue their friends, but Hercules finally uses his brain and comes up with a better strategy. Meanwhile, Abu and Icarus escape thanks to the monkey's tail, which conveniently doubles as a master key. Hades and Jafar daydream about ruling Olympus when Pain and Panic burst in terrified, announcing that Hercules and Aladdin are paying a visit. What nobody knows though is that the two heroes have switched outfits. Jafar goes after them, exploiting each hero's weakness, like rock, which everybody knows is Aladdin's weakness, or giant weird scorpions, which is clearly Hercules' kryptonite. But the heroes reveal their true identities and destroy Jafar's staff. turning him back into a lost soul. Icarus and Abu try to fight Hades, but he warns them to back off before he makes them permanent residents, which sounds fair to the sidekicks. The heroes say their goodbyes, with Jasmine telling Hercules that he should come see them if he ever visits Agrabah. Aladdin and friends head back home, and Hercules flies off toward the horizon. Honestly, I really enjoyed this episode, especially the scenes with Jafar and Hades, who completely steal the show with their hilarious and unforgettable moments. Hercules and Aladdin also have their moments, and it definitely would have been fun to see a reunion at some point. I like that Hercules even has his own character arc where he learns to use his brains together with his muscles, which ends up with him doing just that in the final battle against Jafar. Although, to be honest, I don't quite get how Jafar's spells against each hero were supposed to represent their weaknesses. But anyway. Now, all the main characters from the Aladdin animated series make an appearance, except for one. You could argue that Genie doesn't technically have a face appearance, but at least we see his fist when he punches Pain and Panic. The only one we don't see at all, not even his wings, is Iago, and there's a good reason for that. Remember when Phil starts flirting with Jasmine and she tells him she's married? Well, Aladdin and Jasmine get married at the end of the third movie, King of Thieves, which means this episode canonically takes place after that. The thing is, something else happens at the end of that movie as well, which is that Iago decides to leave with Cassim, Aladdin's father, to travel the world. So, to avoid a contradiction, the creative team decided the parrot couldn't appear in the episode. That being said, there is a reference to the bird in the crossover. When Hades sends Pain and Panic to take down Aladdin just for laughs, he also gives Jafar a couple of villain tips. One of them is that he should have a minion or two, to which Jafar angrily replies that he did have a minion, a treacherous parrot, which is a reference to the movie The Return of Jafar, in which Iago betrays Jafar and actually causes his death. Did you know there's a reason the Hercules animated series contradicts everything established in the original movie? I made a video revisiting the show and breaking down exactly that topic, and you can check it out right here. Subscribe for more. Dr. Panda out.